Hello, 4th grade. I'm going to represent a fraction with a denominator of 10 or 100 with a decimal today. Been dealing with these two denominators for a few days now. Probably wondering why I'm so obsessed with these two denominators. Well, today you're going to find out why. So label that as the next title in your math notebook. Lots of concentration needed from you today, so once you got that, close it up and give me your best possible brain. I want to talk place value a little bit. Been a long time, but we used to talk about the values of these places or the names of these. This was the thousands place, and this was the hundreds place. This was the tens place, and this was the ones place. And I'll come back to why I wanted to review that in a minute, but remember that different places have different names and different values. So let's talk about money for a sec. We've been doing this. We've done several problems where I said, okay, show this as a fraction, which you're not used to doing the money. You're saying, all right, well, that's $2, and this represents 12 cents, which is 12 1/100ths of, that didn't come out well, 12 cents. Comes out as $2 and 12 1/100ths of the next dollar. So that's how we've been writing in class the last few days. You're probably used to seeing $2.12 written like this instead of like this most of the time, but we've been talking about like this. So this is called a decimal right here, and we use this to separate the whole from the part, right? And we can write 12 1/100ths this way, or we can write 12 1/100ths this way. This and this are the same number. This is 2 and 12 1/100ths, and this is 2 and 12 1/100ths. That's exactly how you say this number. With money, you tend to say cents, but if I hadn't put money in there and you just saw this number, this would be 2 and 12 1/100ths, and this would be 2 and 12 1/100ths. And so the reason I came back here and talked about place value is there are actually places after the ones. We put a decimal in, and like we saw, we can have, if this was money, I can have two more places for the cents after this, $4,579 and some cents. So these places are called the tenths place and the hundredths place. So if I put my 12 cents in there, since I go out to the hundredths place, I would say 4,579 and 12 1/100ths. It's the exact same thing as 12 1/100ths. So we're going to deal a lot with that today. So let's do a money one, and then we're just going to change a lot of things between fractions and decimals. So let's keep thinking money, because that's where you have the best connection to all this. So let's represent this amount of money with both a fraction and a decimal. So I'll do the fraction first because we've been talking about the fraction version for longer. So the fraction version is 3 whole dollars, and then this is 10, 20, 21, 22 cents, like 22 pennies, right? This is 10 pennies, 10 pennies, 1 penny, 1 penny. Altogether, if I made this all pennies, I'd have 22 1/100ths of the next dollar. That's 3 and 22 1/100ths. So, and as you already know how to write this with a decimal because you're used to seeing money and you're used to writing it with a decimal. So with a decimal, that is exactly what you're used to seeing. That fraction is the same as that decimal. And you even read them the same. This is 3 and 22 1/100ths, and this is 3 and 22 1/100ths. With money, you tend to say cents, so that people know you're talking about money. But these are two different ways to write the exact same thing. This is my whole dollars, and this is my part dollars. This is my whole dollars, and this is my part dollars. Whole and part, same thing. And money is where you're really used to seeing it. So let's make it a little more complicated. And let's change between fractions and decimals for lots of different numbers. Okay? So let me remind you here, we're going to do this, of my place values here. This is ones, this is tenths, and this is hundredths. And I only bring that up so you'll think of these. So let's start with this one. 2 and 3 tenths. If I read this out loud, I would say the words 2 and 3 tenths. That's how I would pronounce this number, 2 and 3 tenths. So if we're to go up and put it in here, I even say 3 tenths. So when I come up here, I would say it's 2 wholes and 3 tenths. I don't have any hundredths, so I don't need that one in this one. So 2 and 3 tenths as a decimal looks like 2 and 3 tenths. That says 2 and 3 tenths. That says 2 and 3 tenths. They both say the same number. It's just two different ways to represent the part. Let's do another. This says, if I read it as a fraction, 3 and 62 1/100ths. That's how I would pronounce that, 3 and 62 1/100ths. If I were to come up and write it in my place values, I'd say 3 and then now I need hundreds, 62 1/100ths, 3 and 62 1/100ths. So 3 and 62 1/100ths as a fraction, 3 and 62 1/100ths as a decimal. All right. Just do some more examples. You'll get used to this, I think, the more we do it. That's why I put so many I do's, and there will be the same number of we do's, just so you get a lot of practice in. All right. So different one. This is trickier one here. Ready? 4 and 9 hundredths. 4 and 9 1/100ths. So I've got 4 wholes, and I say 9 1/100ths here. So I've got to put my 9 in the hundredths place here, not in the tenths place. I don't have any tenths, I have hundredths. So if that's the case, I don't have any tenths, and I just have to say that. I have to say, well, I don't have any tenths, so I have to put a 0 there to say I don't have any. All right, so that is 4 and 9 1/100ths. 4 and 9 1/100ths, 4 and 9 1/100ths. All right, let's go the other way. Let's switch from this to back up to a fraction. Not any harder to do, but I've got to do it. Let me erase my number here. The way I do this is I say it and think about my places just like I would. So this says 6 and 2 tenths. If I write it in my things here, it's 6 and 2 tenths. And if you say it like that, 6 and 2 tenths, I'm saying the fraction. 6 and 2 tenths. Super easy. I just say it and just write down exactly what I said. All right, keep going. This says 7 and 47 hundredths. As you get used to your place values, it's easiest to just write out the place values here and then write the number in there. 7 and 47 hundredths. If you do that, and you know the name of the tenths place and the hundredths place, then you just say it and write down what you just said. 7 and 47 1/100ths. All right. Same thing here. I'm going to go ahead and write that up in my blank. That is 8 and 1/100th. 8 and, none of these, 1/100th. So I just say what I just said. 8 and 1/100th. Or 1/100th. Just like that. And last but not least, 9 and 80 hundredths. 9 and 80 hundredths. All right, that's not too bad, I hope. It's just two different ways to write the same thing. So if you look in any of these columns, you've got two different ways to write the same number, okay? Open up your math notebook. Pause it. Let's do a couple of these together for the we do. So if you want to pause and write these in, you can, and then we'll work them out together. You may also want to remind yourself ones, tenths, hundredths. All right. And I'm going to have to go kind of quick here, so feel free to pause me as you need to. I'm going to run a little short on time, so I may go kind of quick. So pause when you need me to. All right. So this is 8 and 6 tenths. So when I say 8 and 6 tenths, I'm saying 8 and I'm talking about tenths. I say the word tenths, so I'm going to put my value in the tenths spot. 8 and 6 tenths, and that's the number. I don't need any hundredths because I don't have any hundredths. 8 and 6 tenths. So this says 8 and 6 tenths. This says 8 and 6 tenths. Next one, 4 and 91 1/100ths. These are kind of easy because I just fill in all the spots. There's no like trick on this one. There's no empty spots. You just say kind of 4 and 9 tenths and 1/100th. 4 and 91 1/100ths. So that is 4 and 91 1/100ths, just like that. 4 and 91 1/100ths, 4 and 91 1/100ths. This one's a little trickier. When you have a hundredths denominator but only one digit in the top, this is probably the easiest one to mess up on. You gotta hear what you say. You've got to say it out loud. 2 and 3 1/100ths. 3 hundredths. So I've got 2 and, but I don't have 3 of these because I'm saying hundredths. I have 2 and 3 hundredths. I don't have any tenths, and so you end up with a decimal that looks like that. 2 and 3 1/100ths. All right. Other way is easier, I feel, because if you know how to say it, you know how to write the fraction. This says, if I put my number up here in the blanks, I'm going to even read this, 5 and 4 tenths. 5 and 4 tenths. And if you say it, then you just write 5 and 4 tenths. It's super easy to write the fraction. 5 and 4 tenths. All right, moving on. I think I'll make it. Gotta go fast. This is 3 and 57 hundredths, and if you write it here and you just say that, 3 and 57, go out to the end, 3 and 57 hundredths, 3 and 57 hundredths. Got it? This is the trickiest one, I feel. Trickiest situation is when you have a hundredths but no tenths. But when you write it, 9, I would read this, 9 and 2 hundredths. So I write 9 and 2 hundredths. And this one, not too bad. This is 7 and 90 hundredths. 7 and 90 hundredths. This takes some getting used to, switching between the fraction and the decimal, because it's just so new. It's two ways to write the exact same value, and you even say them the same. Pick any one of these. 5 and 4 tenths, 5 and 4 tenths. 3 and 57 hundredths, 3 and 57 hundredths. There's two ways to write the same thing. This is tricky. I would definitely love for you to go back and rewatch the I do or the we do if you're having any trouble understanding this, because as much practice as possible doing this until you're really comfortable with it is important. This is one of the toughest things to get used to, is writing decimals the right way and saying them as I'm saying them and getting used to pronouncing them. So please go back and watch this again if you've got the time or if you need to, and we'll have plenty of practice tomorrow. See you then.